¿A dónde está papi? 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 ¿A dónde está papi?
Welcome to the Thursday stream. I hope everyone's having an awesome Thursday morning. At least as awesome as it can be. Howdy, everybody. Winter Veggie. Morning, Mayhem Hippie. Astro. We have a 19 degrees Celsius with summer showers. Nice. I hurt my thumb doom scrolling all night. Oh no. Yeah, well. Can't say I blame you. How's everybody doing? So in a moment, and by a moment, meaning probably within the next, I want to say hour or so, there will be a Supreme Court ruling that is going to basically determine or potentially could set up the way the government works or doesn't. And that is the West Virginia versus EPA case. We've been kind of just following this case more or less as it comes, as updates come, and it looks like, if I am correct, and if I understand the ramifications of this case, it could determine how governmental agencies work, essentially. The argument is that actually, the bureaucracy of like the EPA doesn't have any power to do regulations or anything like that. That's actually supposed to be the job of Congress, which in that case, it will domino effect into other things. Like, for example, how do we regulate OSHA? How do we regulate work safety? Naughty Grandma, how's it going? Where's your smile gone? Ask the Supreme Court. Can you explain this a bit more? So the idea, the EPA, yeah, like what about the FDA? Does the FDA have authority now? Well, we'll see. Because the argument is that the EPA actually doesn't have legislative authority to do regulations, essentially, is what the argument is. So if that's the case, then what are we going to do with like things like the FDA, OSHA? These have very, very potentially serious domino effects. In fact, we can probably look it up exactly. West Virginia versus EPA. Can everybody hear me okay? Is audio normal? Okay, loud and clear. Okay, good. If that's the case, I have a COVID cure in a pill. No painful needle and restores your sense of taste and well-being. True. If the EPA gets power, we scientists and environmentalists need to abuse this power and start arresting a whole bunch of folks. Man, no. It's basically... Okay, so the case itself is West Virginia is arguing that actually the way the EPA uses the Clean Air Act to address greenhouse gases is actually not legal. according to them. All right, so let's just take a quick peek at what exactly I'm talking about. You have music in the background, do I? Yeah, I should. I deal with trauma with humor. Same. I'm incredibly sarcastic the more angrier I am. I should. Can everybody hear the music? I'm being quiet for a second. It should be actually in the very background, but... Okay, so it is there. It's supposed to be very, very low. Because I can hear it very low as well. No, the only person I'm angry at is basically the Republican Party. That's who I'm actually very angry at. Like, I can hear it, but it's very faint. Okay, so as long as it's faint and you can kind of hear it, it means it's there somewhere. I specifically put it very, very low. It's okay, but it was so low that it might have been an accident. Oh, okay. Yeah. It's very, very low. It should be anyways. But it should be kind of like very tiny, faint in the background. Even I can barely hear it. You know, I also have a update, NVIDIA update, so who knows? Who knows if we're gonna get some wonky stuff today in on stream. Alright, folks. Use any curse word in your head. Yeah, no. There's no breaking of TOS. A update. How's it going, Buck Dragon? We'll see. Okay, so let's first start by setting the groundwork for what exactly we're talking about here for today's ruling. That is going to be maybe about an hour from now. Let's see. Let's just set up the stage, right? First and foremost, folks, if you haven't already been made aware, this upcoming week, that's right, this next Tuesday, mark your calendars, July 5th, we are switching to 5 p.m. Eastern. Good morning from Spring Valley, New York. Howdy, Lease Manor. 5 p.m. Eastern, July 5th. Are they ruling on sex again? Not that I'm aware of. I don't think so. Alright, so let's take a look. This week, by this week meaning today, I believe, the Supreme Court is expected to decide a major climate case that could determine what tools the federal government can use to cut greenhouse gas emissions. In this case, the West Virginia versus EPA started out years ago as a battle over how much authority the EPA has to force power plants to cut pollution. Imagine like having to fight this, unironically. But it's turned into a bigger fight over how much power federal agencies have to enforce all kinds of regulations. With the Biden administration's climate plans relying on drastically slashing CO2 emissions from power plants, the case is being closely watched by environmentalists. The Supreme Court's decision could come down as soon as Wednesday. Well, it's probably today, to be honest. This is kind of a couple days, yeah. The core of the lawsuit is a disagreement about the Clean Air Act, the bedrock environmental law in the U.S. That lays out the EPA's responsibility to protect the nation's air quality. Yeah, like imagine that being like the contention Since 1970, the EPA's action under the Clean Air Act has led to a significant drop in major pollutants like particulate matter and nitrogen oxides. In 2015, former President Barack Obama went further, using the Clean Air Act to mandate a new set of regulations for U.S. power plants called the Clean Power Plan. In particular, the new plan sets guidelines for carbon dioxide emissions, a greenhouse gas that is a primary driver of climate change. Well, one of them, yes. By regulating those emissions, the plan pushed states to transition to more clean energy sources like solar and wind. Okay. The proposal didn't last long. 24 states, including West Virginia, sued the EPA in response, and in 2016, the Supreme Court decided to put the Clean Power Plant on hold as the case made its way through the court. By 2019, the Trump administration had replaced the Clean Power Plant with its own weaker greenhouse gas regulations called the Affordable Clean Energy Rule. Former President Trump's EPA also decided that the Obama administration had gone too far from using the Clean Air Act to push for greenhouse gas pollution cuts across the entire power section. So then what's the point of having it? Determining instead that its authority to regulate pollution was limited to what a power plant can do within its fence line. What? Under the Trump administration's interpretation of the Clean Air Act, the EPA might be able to push power plants to install equipment that captures CO2 on site so that it doesn't escape into the atmosphere, but it can't push a state to phase out fossil fuel plants in favor of solar or wind. In the meantime, a different group of states successfully sued to block the Trump plan, leaving it up to the President Joe Biden's EPA to craft an entirely new rule. West Virginia appealed that ruling to the Supreme Court, and here we are. It's now up to the Supreme Court to decide which interpretation holds sway, even though neither Obama nor Trump's greenhouse gas rules ever went into effect. A clean power grid is absolutely crucial to cleaning up the U.S.'s frightfully dirty climate record. Among other things. The Biden administration, as part of rejoining the Paris Climate Agreement, and Trump tried to renege, committed the U.S. to reducing its planet heating, blah, 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 blah. Yes, I know. Okay. Okay, this is why, we're here. This fight is actually bigger than the Clean Air Act or EPA. Okay, hold on. I think this is relevant. This paragraph is relevant. Sorry, I gotta run to Manuel Antonio's National Park. Hopefully see some capybaras and such. Hey! That's awesome, Bob Dragon. Imagine thinking acid rain needs to make a comeback true. Alex Jones has announced that Trump will announce his 2024 presidency on July 4th. Yeah, okay. I'll believe it when I see it. Alex Jones is not exactly known for telling the truth. But I will absolutely update if that actually happens. We'll see. Okay, here we go. This is the relevant part here. Democrats have been trying to pass legislation that would push utilities to use more clean energy, but it's been tied up in congressional stalemates for months. That makes executive powers all the more important for the administration's climate change efforts. Currently, Biden can try to use federal agencies like the EPA to crack down on polluters without relying on Congress. But with a conservative majority in the Supreme Court, including 3 Trump appointees, a decision could come down that restricts the EPA's power to do that. The fight is actually bigger than the Clean Air Act or the EPA. In West Virginia versus EPA, the plaintiffs want to hem in what they call the administrative state. The EPA and other federal agencies have set rules and regulations that affect the American economy. Oh man, this is gonna get wild if this is true. If this ruling happens the way I think it's happening, or the way it's being explained to me, that this has massive ramifications. Coral Davenport writes for the New York Times, the case is a result of years of coordinated strategy to hamstring the executive branch's ability to regulate industry. We don't know yet, but given the makeup of the court, environmental activists are unlikely to come away happy. In one scenario, the court might decide to narrowly look at the Clean Air Act and what language says about the EPA's authority over power plants. In that case, the Clean Air Act might no longer be an appropriate vehicle for the EPA to rein in greenhouse gas emissions from power plants. That limited interpretation might leave it open for the EPA to find other ways to regulate greenhouse gas pollutions, just not through the Clean Air Act. Oh man, that's the best case scenario. Oh man, imagine thinking that that's the best case scenario. On the other hand, the Supreme Court might decide to zoom out, look beyond the language in the Clean Air Act. This is where it could get dicey for the Biden administration's ability to rely on the executive branch to get anything done on climate change or even other agendas that would require federal agencies to write and enforce rules on industry. The court could limit a federal agency's ability to expand its power beyond anything explicitly written out by law by Congress. Thanks to a 1984 doctrine called the Chevron deference, courts generally defer to a federal agency's expertise in interpreting more ambiguous statutes. So, even if CO2 isn't explicitly written about in the 1970 Clean Air Act, under this doctrine, the EPA might decide that it makes sense to tackle greenhouse gas pollution given today's climate crisis. I mean, yeah, that makes sense. The Supreme Court might instead seek to strengthen the major questions doctrine, which says that the court doesn't need to give deference to federal agencies in matters of national significance that the Congress has yet to explicitly write into legislation. So basically, it's going to kick it back to Congress. Why the SCOTUS so against clean air and clean water? Yeah. Conservatism. Winter Veggie. Conservatism. Does the federal government have codified law to achieve net zero by 2050? Ha! No. Whatever it is, we're likely to find out soon. The Supreme Court is scheduled to issue opinions tomorrow on 4 cases that are remaining this term, which might include West Virginia versus EPA. Until then, there's a whole lot of environmental advocates and legal experts on edge. Right. Because then the question becomes, like, so Mayhem Hippie mentioned the FDA. What kind of expansive abilities does the FDA have to regulate? Does Congress have to go back and explicitly write new legislation? Good luck with that. That's going to completely hamstring and upend the way the federal government works. So that's why this one's going to be a nail biter. I'm not going to lie. This one's going to be a nail biter. Folks, let me give a quick thank you to some offline follows. Let's Chief and Kitty in the Window. Thank you for the follows. I appreciate that. Thank you, guys. Yeah, so this is gonna get wild. Mayhem Hippie with the 150. Count them. 150 biddies. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. This is a great article. Yeah, it's a good article. There's a great way to get you kind of the TLDR of what exactly the ramifications are, and not good. Not good. Remind me what OSHA is in the government. OSHA does I forget what it stands for, but it basically regulates or gives the groundwork for safety in the workplace. Safety compliance in the workplace. Here, instead of just talking, it's called Occupational Safety and Health Administration. That's what it is. So yeah, all of that is in jeopardy. That's the problem. All of that is in jeopardy. states' rights. I don't even know if that's like a states' rights issue. Well, kind of, right? Kind of. Imagine thinking that the right to, the ability to have clean air. Imagine having to argue the ability to have clean air. Imagine having to argue bodily autonomy. In 2022. When is the UN going to step in and help us? There's no help coming, folks. Not from the UN. About 150, true. The UN isn't coming. I thought the US Supreme Court was there to rule on constitutional matters. Yeah, it is. From my understanding, West Virginia is arguing that it's not up to the EPA to tell or dictate, I guess, regulations. So I believe that's why it's there. Unfreaking believable. I'm so mad I joined the Citizens Climate body last night. What is a Citizens Climate lobby? By the way, I'm still waiting for the world's freedom fighters. I'm still waiting for the world's freedom fighters to stand up for human rights and bodily autonomy for women. The CCL is a cross-partisan action committee for stopping climate change. I'm about to give up on SCOTUS, though. Yeah, no. The focus shouldn't be on SCOTUS. The only purpose is to watch what's happening. But no, don't think that. No. Don't look through change there. We got to use the tools that we have available to us, right? Doing something like that is a method of deploying one tool. Just going and joining action committees and things like that, getting involved in your local communities. That's an excellent tool to use. That Twitch monster wants 150. Yes. I am a Twitch monster and I require all the biddies. I've been arguing on Facebook about abortion and religion, and it's so hard to not shake these mouth breathers. Oh man, listen, I get into these fights all the time, because I feel like it needs to be done. Not because I intend on changing people's minds. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But I just can't let something so crucial, the right to bodily autonomy, just fly on by without saying something, right? If I see something so egregious, even if I'm not there to change their mind, I'm just not going to let that fly, if that makes sense. And at the end of the day, I said my piece. At the end of the day, I said my piece. So I think that a good argument, Winner Veggie, if you want to kind of use this one too. If these religious people, these religiously indoctrinated people, think that, and there's no pulling them away from the idea that life begins at conception, right? Because that's the argument, right? That's at the end of the day, that's what they believe. They believe that as soon as life begins at conception, which is obviously clown logic. It's just not based in any type of reality whatsoever. By that logic, everything is, a single cell is life. Sure. But that's not they're using that to make this argument that therefore you cannot do abortions, right? That's the groundwork of it. What they're not telling you is that by their own logic, these people are basically saying that that clump of cells is a human life, it's a human person, it's equal to you, right? It's equal to me. And therefore, by extension, you are essentially entitled to other people's bodies. That's their argument. At the end of the day, that's their argument. Whether they want to admit it or not, they are saying that people are entitled to your body. And that's why they are authoritarian fucks. There's a reason why you cannot force anybody to give up a single blood cell of your own body if it meant to save another person. You have to give consent. You're the one that has the bodily autonomy to say, you know what? Yeah, I do give consent to donate blood, or I do give consent to, I don't know, donate a kidney. Even corpses have more rights than half the country. Because guess what? You have to give consent beforehand, and you can rescind that consent at any time. I did. I put myself as a non-organ donor, and I can switch it back if I want to. Hey, because guess what? It's my body. Even my own siblings, if they are about to die, and only I can save them, there's no other compatible donor. Only I am the sole person in this planet that could save them. I could still say no. I can still say no. Why? Because I have bodily autonomy. You do not have the entitlement to another person's body. That's it. If you want to make that concession that, oh, it's a human life, it's a person, it's a real life person. Okay, well, no person is entitled to your body. No person is entitled to your body. Vote out GOP and the MAGA because I'm Alio and I'm voting for the lesser evil now. That's a tool, my friend. That's an a tool. Yep. We can't leave that tool on the table. I got really mad about the GOP about COVID and I said my body and my... Yeah. Okay, so like that's different. In my opinion, so I think of it like this. You are entitled to do whatever you want to your body, right? You are entitled to do whatever you want to your body. Here, I'll give you an example. If I want to, I could sit here and drink myself into oblivion every single day. If I want to, I can sit here and drink myself into oblivion 24/7 at 7 days a week, 8 days a week if I have to. But you know what I'm not entitled to do? Get behind a wheel and start driving. Why? Because then that affects other people. That's when we have that divide, right? Because if I want to, I have every right to do whatever it is I wish. If I wanted to give myself a entire tattoo sleeve on my left hand, I have every right to do so. Because it's my body. You are not entitled to anybody else's body. And if you truly believe by some weird religious dogma, some weird religiously indoctrinated gobbledygook, that life begins at conception, so you're equating like essentially a clump of cells with a human being, then I will flip that on its head and I will say, okay, but you're still not entitled to anybody's body. Nobody should force anybody on themselves, if that makes sense. And the best example is the whole organ donor thing. Even if you're the last person on this earth, you're still not forced to donate a single blood cell, an organ, or whatever. Even in death, you have rights. Even in death, your body has rights. Do you think Trump is our last hope to save this country? Go fuck yourself. If an embryo kills the host, would it go to jail? Yeah, exactly. There we go. Hey, prison for prisons for embryos. That's right. Man, we got to set up specific laws in Republicans have to be principled and set up laws so that if an embryo ends up killing their host, then as soon as they're born, it would go to jail. Can I claim the fetus on my tax? No, you cannot, because hey, and this is true, it's not a person. Like, oh no, I'm not playing today. Listen, at this point in time, I am of the belief that correct, you should be able to get life insurance for the fetus in case of miscarriages. My oldest kid was born 8 hours after the tax deadline, so I had to wait an entire year to claim him. Dang. You know why that is? To make sure that it's a person. Because, like, there could be a situation where, you know, it happens, where unfortunately the child might die after birth. So at this point, I'm pretty much of the belief, or at least I'm much, much, much warmer to the idea of, well, just not tolerating folks who are intolerable. The way I've seen some of this rhetoric go down from the right has truly disgusted me beyond words. And I was originally in the camp to be a little bit more, at least an attempt to be a little bit more open and attempt to just kind of have conversations. I still am. But I think that there needs to be lines. And if you're here, if your ideology is based on taking away people's autonomy, if your ideology is based on subverting democratic norms, throwing away the very things, and I use this word lightly, the very things that make our democracy, representative democracy, kind of have that feeling, then you should be excluded from the conversation. If you want, we can fight in private. I will talk to people one-on-one. But I'm not going to have this like as a platform. I'm not going to have this as a way to debate the ideas of bodily autonomy or to debate the ideas of democracy or anything like that. If you want to argue with me one-on-one. Yes, Carlin Bresser is a genius. Exactly. Prison for embryos. When? So winter veggie. So a more refined, because I know this is live, and honestly, sometimes I don't have a good way of putting my thoughts together necessarily live. I generally tend to write down things a lot better once I get my thoughts collected, and I'm just not like doing things live where I can misspeak or, I don't know, say things like we're having another January 6th when I meant to say we're having another January 6th hearing. I don't get to edit myself in live in live. So here's my argument, winter veggie. Hey, where'd it go? Oh no question. I just wanted to illustrate the argument that I was making. It's just that sometimes it's really difficult to kind of edit live because it's live. But when I do get a chance to always like write down my thoughts, they're a little bit more put together, is what I'm trying to say. So what I was saying earlier, winter veggie, is that this is basically my argument as it stands right now. For the absolute idiots who can't see past religious indoctrination that life begins at conception, do you need to provide life-saving organs or even blood to save another? The answer is no, because we have bodily autonomy. Understand what you're saying. You want to give the state the power to force people to surrender bodily autonomy to sustain another, and I use that in quotations because it is not a person. They believe it is. Corpses have more rights than half the country thanks to you authoritarian fucks, and I still believe that. I'm already at work and got distracted by my book. Nice. That is basically a concise way, a concise framing of what I'm trying to say, if that makes sense. How's it going, Fu Man? I'm sorry, I didn't say hello to you. Correct. So the TLDR is no, you're not entitled to another person's body. You're not entitled to sustain another person. Okay? That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. I'm just still reeling from the fact that someone else's religion is allowed to make laws about my body. This whole effing country is supposed to be about religious freedom. Ha! These folks don't care about any of that. They will literally curtail your basic humanity in the name of freedom. I'm buying my parents the book Saving Us, Catherine Hayhoe. Correct. By religious freedom, they mean the ability for Christians to oppress others. Right. Exactly. Any other religion are not real ones, right? Especially to these like heavily religious zealots. If you want to make them uncomfortable, ask them if they would be okay with like Islamic prayer, leading school events with Islamic prayers, just like that Christian coach did. Ask them if it would be okay if the Satanic Temple got tax dollars to open up private schools. Ask them if that would be okay. And these heavily like religious zealots will like flip their shit. It's part of the Christian nationalist movement. True. F. Yeah, exactly. Amy Coney Barrett was in a cult. That's true. That's true. I joined the Satanic Temple. I will lead my nephew's sports team in sacrificial burnings. Yeah, based. You should be able to. The basic premise of their worldview boils down to a class of people whom the law protects but doesn't bind, and another class of people whom the law binds but does not protect. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. This whole idea of freedom and all that is it's just a ruse, okay? It's just a ruse. Yeah, she was in a cult. Oh shoot, I forget what it was called. Something about prairie. Amy, hold on. What instead of just Amy Coney Barrett cult? People of Praise. There we go. This is just quickly what I pulled up. Funny Fridays did a YouTube on YouTube did a great breakdown of People of Praise. Fundy. Oh, okay. Breaking, like, basically shattering, like, fundamentalism. I'm still so lucky to live where I do. We have annual pagan rituals on the State House lawn. Nice, that's based. Sworn affidavits from the 90s from a former member of a secretive religious group with alleged ties to the Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett described an environment of complete control one woman faced during her involvement. The affidavit was detailed in a report by The Guardian published on Monday, which described alleged instances in which the founder of People of Praise and his wife took part in sexual displays in front of children and others. Yeah. Imagine my surprise. The fundamentalist extremist on the right who do their damnedest to try to brand the left as a bunch of nonsense for TOS purposes. Surprise, surprise! It's actually them. Surprise, surprise, it's actually them. Weird how that always happens, right? What's the saying? A accusation is just a Republican or conservative accusation is just a admission. A conservative accusation is just an admission. We know hypocrisy from the right. They say it's outrageous, meaning it's true. Yeah. That's right. When you point a finger at someone else, look at that. 3 are pointing at you. Seems to be a consistent, and this is no exaggeration, seems to be always a consistent theme, right? They have this all, like, small government. We care about small government, and then, like, but actually... we want to make sure we're involved in every single aspect of your private life, up to and including what you do with your body. We care about freedoms and all this other stuff while slowly stripping away rights. It's an illusion, folks. It's an illusion. They've always been this way. gaslight, obstruct, and project. There you go. And what's sad is that people buy this. People believe this. That's what's angering. Women are deleting period tracking apps out of fear of being prosecuted if they get pregnant and abort. Yeah. So from what I understand, like, you always be wary of information that's on any electronic device. But I think that I think that just be wary. Just as a principle, be wary that information on your devices can can be used. But depending on which app you have, a lot of it is just kind of how you report it. So you can lie, and you can also set it up yourself. Just keep that in mind and be safe. Men should be downloading the period tracking app and making it. Yeah, exactly. Because you can twist the results. Everybody can. When you criticize me, you work for the devil. That's funny. Mike Lindell. I believe somebody posted a wiki page. Let's see. People of Praise is a network of lay Christian intentional communities. As a parachute apostle, the membership is open to any baptized Christian who affirms the Nicene Creed and agrees to community covenant. The majority of its members are Catholics, but Protestants can also join. Of course. Reflecting the ecumenical nature of People of Praise, it has 22 branches in the US, Canada, Caribbean, with approximately 1,700 members. Jesus Christ. It founded Trinity Schools, which are aligned with the philosophy of classical Christian education. People of Praise was formed in 1971 by Kevin Ranigan and Paul DeSius. Both men were involved in Catholic charismatic renewal, in which Pentecostals religion experience such as baptism in the Holy Spirit, speaking in tongues, and prophecy as practiced by Catholics. Yeah, normal stuff. Its early history influenced by institutional development of Catholic charismatic movement in the US, and also played important roles in national charismatic conferences. People of Praise practice a form of spiritual direction which involves the supervision of a member by a more spiritually mature person called a head. Yikes. Let me guess. The men. Let me do some guessing. The head is always going to be a man. I'm just spitballing. People of Praise maintains that members retain their freedom of conscience under such direction. Sure. The community, like the Catholic Church, has few women in leadership positions. Oh man, damn. How does he do it, chat? It nevertheless encourages women to pursue higher education and employment. Sure. Does anybody think that this is what should be making decisions in the country? Is that really what needs to be making decisions in this country? People who believe in prophecy and speak in tongues? Is that really what needs to be running the country? Or I should say, making decisions in the country? More female cultist leaders. True. Hey, asshole. Go fuck yourself. Piece of shit. And that's how you properly deal with fucking Nazis. Recursive Rose, how's it going? We replaced some crazy Bible folks in our place that used to hold regular Bible events and exorcisms. The neighbors were hugely relieved when we moved in. Nice! I'm a practicing nature-based pagan and my fiancé is a Buddhist. Nice! Just unapologetically racist. Yeah, like, this is even beyond that. That was a Nazi. Like, an unironic Nazi. His name, included the classic slur. Unironic Nazi. And in case that Nazi is still listening, you will never win. You will never win. You are pathetic. You will never, ever win. Hey, ADT, how's it going? Great to see you. Great to see you, Abond. What's James from the internet? If you show your ass, we'll show you the door. Hate has no home here. Exactly. If you think that your type of ideology deserves a seat at the table, no thank you. No thank you. Oh, the Patriot Prayer. The master race, folks. The master race. So someone put it in perspective for me the other day by saying it's a national security issue when majority of an organized religion not only believes in the apocalypse, but encourages it. Yeah, it's a death cult. Why do you think that Republicans have no legitimate plan to deal with climate change? They actually believe that it's okay and it's part of God's plan. They're waiting for it and prepared. Why do you think all those, there's like a massive industry to sell like prepper food and all this other stuff under the guise of like Patriot food and all this other stuff. Yeah. They want it to happen. If we fast forward a couple of decades from now, when the new norm of the climate crisis is constant heat waves, temperatures that are just uninhabitable, almost tens and tens of millions, an untold amount of people displaced, areas completely underwater, uninhabitable, they'll look at that and be like, yeah, this is just normal. This is God's wrath or God's plan or whatever it is that they use to justify it. It's a death cult. And that death cult is making decisions. There was a movement among covens not long ago about casting against this movement. I could not do. Christians are not inherently bad people. I know some really good Christian folks. Sadly, what we're seeing is extremists and the bad side of Christians. Yeah, but like just generally speaking, like religious folks like that, I mean, it's a cult. It's a cult. Like if you're a overly religious person, keep it to yourself. How about that? If you're like one of those like Christian people, keep it to yourself. I was living in a town south of New Orleans when Hurricane Katrina hit. Christians everywhere talked about how it was God's wrath for NOLA supporting the LGBTQ community, LGBT plus community. Unfreaking real. Normal people. People who lost everything. And these people are literally saying it's God's wrath against the for support of the LGBTQ people. Despite what's going on, I still refuse to lump all Christians in together. That does not make me any better than judging people as a whole. This is a religious movement, bad of course, and it needs to be stopped. But hurting people as a whole, hating people as a whole is not okay. I think that it is okay to attack Christianity. It is not okay to attack an individual person. Depending on that individual person, obviously. It is a fundamentally broken, a dangerous ideology as a whole. It is a dangerous ideology as a whole. And it is incredibly corrosive. And it needs to be dealt with. But an individual is an individual. Between that and what the Bible condones slavery, I don't see any redeeming values in Christianity. Yeah, as an institution, I think that just Christianity needs to go as a whole. Yeah. I view them the same way I view cops. What was the quote? You go heavy against institutions and softer on individuals. Yeah, they themselves may be good people. They themselves may be good people. But then, like, you would have to ask, like, well then, how do you square that circle with Christianity? The only good Christians in my view is the one who rejects the main teachings of their holy book. Yeah, because, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, these people might be great and amazing and loving people. So then, like, it's kind of weird to subscribe to that. But hey, I mean, right, there we go. Hate systems and not people. Yeah. The quote is longer, but that's the TLDR. You go heavy on systems and you try to be as compassionate to an individual. I mean, what if that person wants to leave that cult? What if that person wants to leave Christianity? It just depends. You take it on a case-by-case basis. There are progressive Christians that exist, but their beliefs fundamentally are at odds with their religious teachings. Yeah, I mean, like, but that's the thing, though. It's religion. It reminds me of when my local Christian church forced me to attend their prayer inside an auditorium at the height of the pandemic to have access to their food pantry. Ah, yes. Nice. That's true. There are progressive Christians, but which then begs the question, like, why do you, I don't know, subscribe to it? Like, you clearly are a good person. Anyway, it just doesn't. It at the end of the day doesn't have to make sense. So we've now had another day gone by, and our very brave free speech people haven't really said much about not only just censorship of big social media companies censoring information regarding abortion pills. Not only is there very little peeps about what how important bodily autonomy is now. Yeah, not a peep, folks. Not a peep from these brave freedom fighters. I think people are Christian because it's an out after death. It's a golden parachute. But, like, to which then I would ask, how do you know that? How do you know that? What if actually the pagans are correct? How do you know this? That's a fundamental question I never, like, get an answer to. My grandma was a church of decades. She helped build by hand, making their stand glazed windows. Cast her out when her husband died, and she got a new boyfriend the following year. Just cast her out and didn't even let her attend anymore. That's gross. That's gross. She was devastated. That's gross. That's why she as an individual was amazing. But the institution, known as Christianity, cast her out. They're indoctrinated into it since it's what others believe, that God is vague enough to cover everything. True. It's all God's plan. I grew up hardcore in the Southern Baptist Church. I don't think believing in God is bad. I believe in multiple gods. Well, yeah, that's not the issue. That's right. I think as long as the intention is good and pure, truly peaceful, then they're good people. Well, the individual can be a good person. I know this as at odds with Christian extremists we are seeing now, which most Christians I know personally do not condone what's going on. Well, maybe they should lead the charge then. Yeah, it's indoctrination. That's what it is. Do you want to know how to spot a grifter? Here's a quick test. This song reminds me of Empire Ants. Is that another game? I think the EPA really might be out. Oh, shoot. Here we go, folks. Hang on to your hats. This is Jordan Peterson's entire commentary on the abortion list as of right now. Unless he makes another video or statement. Can anybody tell me why? This is pretty much basically going to be the extent of his commentary, maybe? Believing in God requires you to accept things without evidence as true. Yeah, that's like, religious dogma. It primes you to believe in harmful things in other areas of your life. Our beliefs inform our actions. Yeah. I'm staunchly anti-theist after growing up Catholic and then swapping to fundamentalist. Yeah, it's a cult. It's a cult, and it's easy to just do that. Especially, if you grow up as a kid, that way. It's indoctrination. It's by design. It's the reason why these folks want, religious stuff in school. But paganism and other religions require belief of things that you cannot prove. That's true. Oh no, and it doesn't look good? Yikes. I'm actually kind of scared. Yeah, religion is the ultimate, trust me, bro. What is it, source? Trust me. I've got a book. I almost don't even want to look at the ruling, to be honest. I almost don't even want to look at the ruling. Before we get to that, can anybody tell me why known freedom warrior, the bastion protector of free speech and rights, Dr. Peterson, anybody tell me why he hasn't been very vocal about this? Don't get me wrong, if you want to believe in something and don't hurt anyone else or try to convert others, cool, but I'm against things that require bad epistemologies. Yeah. I agree. But even then, like, even paganism has, like, a little bit more answers, even if it's not, even if there are things that you cannot prove or whatnot, even paganism has better responses. I mean, like, I don't know. I just see the history of, like, Christianity as an institution, and I see how it's built, and, that's gonna be a no from me, Chief. That's gonna be a no. At the end of the day, I'm cool with pagans because they aren't trying to ruin the country. True. True. That's true. And the bar is very low. True. Hey, asshole that got caught in the automod trying to say some slurs. Go fuck yourself. Is today National Slur Day or what? Jesus. Not in this place. There's nothing wrong with religion when it's not radical. Yes, but okay. It helps desperate people sometimes, yeah. But when a religion, but like that's I guess I don't know. My point is, I really don't care what you believe in. Just don't force it on other people, and don't try to ruin the country. Yeah. I think it's more than that, Bomberman. I think it's more than that. But like at the basis of it, I don't care what people believe. It's when it starts to affect other people. Keep that shit to yourself. To each their own. While they're harming no one. Once you step over that line, you're open to attack. Yeah, it's exactly what I just said. Yeah. I love Bomberman. There's an online one on the Switch that's super fun. Nice. I haven't played Bomberman in decades. I mean that quite literally. I would never try to convert. I ultimately believe the male and female spirit. There are things in this world that we will never have answers for. What harm am I doing by giving back to the earth and appreciating the beauty that the universe has to offer, and I get to heal with my herbs? Yeah. I mean, that's you though. That's perfectly acceptable. Because you're not trying to do anything to anybody. You're literally not trying to do anything to anybody. In the words of my fiance, the Christians are racking up their karma and dharma, and I hope they come back as the lowest life form. True. Religion is personal and should remain personal. Yeah. Is that in my eyes, accepting things without evidence, that's being said, if it remains a personal thing and never harms other, you do you, you'll still be invited to the cookouts. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Alright, folks. Do we have to do this? Do we have to look at the ruling? Do we have to refresh and go look at the ruling? Is that something that we have to do? This ruling is gonna be ass. Yeah. We need to. Okay. Just rip off the band-aid. Okay. Here we go. Hey, okay. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Check this out. The Supreme Court allowed the Biden administration to terminate the Remain in Mexico policy. Hey, okay. Well, lowercase w. Okay. Oh no, here it is. Oh. There it is, right there, about half an hour ago. Okay. Here we go. What is it? The Supreme Court sharply curtails the authority of the EPA to regulate greenhouse gas emissions that cause climate change. In a 6-3 ruling, the court sides with conservative states and fossil fuel companies to adopting a narrow reading of the Clean Air Act. How big is this? It's 89 pages. Jesus Christ. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. The agency determined that the interpretive question raised by the Clean Power Plan fell under the Major Questions Doctrine. Under that doctrine, it is determined that a clear statement is necessary for a court to conclude that Congress intended to delegate authority to this breadth to regulate a fundamental sector of the economy. It found none. What? 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 But the only question before the court is more narrow: whether the best system of emission reduction identified by the EPA in the Clean Power Plan was within the authority granted to the agency in Section 11D of the Clean Air Act. For reasons given, the answer is no. Oh, man. A number of states and private parties filed petitions for review. Page 6, you say. This case justiciable, notwithstanding the government's contention that no petitioner has Article 3 standing, given the EPA's stated intention not to enforce the Clean Power Plan and instead to engage in new rulemaking. In considering standing to appeal, the question is whether the appellant has experienced an injury fairly traceable to judgment below. And if so, in this case, and if so, a favorable ruling from the appellate court would redress that injury, then that appellate court has cognizable Article 3 stakes. Okay, here. Page 6. Just so we're clear, we aren't going to stop it, but this might have slowed down the change just a bit now. Wait, what? What does that mean? Given the precedent, Council's skepticism towards EPA's claim that Section 11 empowers it to devise carbon emission cap based on a generation-shifting approach, the government must point to clear congressional authorization to regulate in that manner. Utility Air 573 U.S. at 324, the government can only offer EPA's authority to establish emission caps at a level reflecting the application of the best system of emission reduction. Adequately demonstrated, the word system, shorn out of all context, however, is an empty vessel. What? Such a vague statutory grant is not close to the sort of clear authorization required. The government points to other provisions. The government points to other provisions of the Clean Air Act, specifically the Acid Rain and National Ambient Air Quality Standard program that use the word system or similar words to describe sector-wide mechanisms for reducing pollution. Just because a cap-and-trade system can be used to reduce emission does not mean that it is the kind of system of emission reduction referred to Section 111. Finally, the court has no occasion to decide whether the statutory phrase system of emission reduction refers exclusively to measures that improve pollution performance of individual sources, such as that all other actions are ineligible to qualify as the BSER. It is pertinent to the court's analysis of that the EPA has acted consistent with such limitations for 4 decades. But the only question before the court is narrow: whether the best system of emission reduction identified by the EPA in the Clean Power Plan was within the authority granted by the section of the Clean Air Act. For the reasons given, the answer is no. I think that's pretty clear. I think that's pretty clear. Is the abandonment of Russian energy sources a conspiracy to clean energy investors? No. No. You can start to predict the future with increased accuracy now that things are going to be set up like this. Cool. Progressive B with 100 biddies. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Welcome. Hi. Oh, I see what you're saying. Hey, yeah, like welcome to the new future, folks. So if I understand this correctly, one of the fundamental arguments that are being presented in front of us is that, in fact, whether the best system of emission reduction identified by the EPA in the Clean Power Plan, which is their job, I think, was within the authority granted to the agency in Section 111D of the Clean Air Act. What? Then what was the point of the Clean Air Act if they have no standing to provide methods of reducing emissions, which by definition would improve clean air? Good morning, it's a rough day. I don't recognize this country I signed up to serve for. Damn, I'm sorry. Now that's heartbreaking. I don't recognize the country I signed up to serve for. Damn. Kathleen, thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. We can predict how long before heat waves start pushing people out of whole areas of land permanently. We can start to predict how much longer America will remain a republic before turning into a full-blown fascist state warring for resources. I'd say about 20 years we'll see major invasions and pillaging mass migrations north. Yeah, and that's the more chill side of things. Spread it forward. That's the chill side. I've started to learn how to make bread the old way so I can learn. We could not find any in stores for the last week. Jesus. Nothing specifically laid out in the Clean Air Act, really, so I guess it's just moot. Yeah, essentially what it's what Fu Man is saying. If Congress doesn't explicitly lay out something that an agency Congress created is trying to do, then they can't do that thing. The BECR system is not explicitly laid out in the Clean Air, so therefore, the court says that the EPA can't do it. The question before us then is whether this broader conception of the EPA's authority is within the power granted to it by the Clean Air Act. Clean Air Act establishes 3 main regulatory programs to control air pollution from stationary sources such as power plants. Maximum safe amount of covered pollutants in the air as to each hazardous pollutant. By contrast, the agency must promulgate emission standards for both new and existing major sources. Those standards must require maximum degree of reduction in emissions that the EPA administrator, taking into consideration the cost of achieving such emission reduction and any non-air quality, health, and environmental impacts that energy requirements determine is achievable through the application of measures, processes, methods, systems, or techniques of emission reductions. In other words, the EPA must directly require all covered sources to reduce their emissions to a certain level, and it chooses that level by determining the maximum degree of reduction it considers achievable in practice by using the best existing technologies and methods. Remain in Mexico got a recent ruling from them. A decent ruling, yep. So that means that it would take a literal act of Congress in order to allow the EPA to do its job. Jesus Christ. Yeah, this is going to be massive. Because by that extension, couldn't then the argument extend to, say, the FDA, the OSHA? Should the right case come along? And we know how effective they are. you can't. They can't do anything outside of what is explicitly laid out in the founding law. Right, but this one is specifically for the EPA. Yikes. Things changed in October 2015 when the EPA promulgated two rules addressing CO2 pollution from power plants, for one for new plants under Section 111B and the other for existing plants under 11D. Both were premised on the agency's earlier findings that carbon dioxide is an air pollutant that may be reasonably be anticipated to endanger public health or welfare by causing climate change. Carbon dioxide is not subject to an NAAQS and has not been listed as a toxic pollutant. What? Progressive B with the tier 1 sub. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. The point, after all, was to compel the transfer of power to generating capacity from existing sources to wind and solar. The White House stated that the Clean Power Plan would drive an aggressive transformation in domestic energy industry. Happy to support. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. The EPA argued that under the major questions doctrine, a clear statement was necessary to conclude that Congress intended to delegate authority of this breadth to regulate a fundamental sector of the economy. It found none. Indeed, it concluded, given the text and structure of the statute, Congress has directly spoken to this precise question and precluded the use of measures of such such as generation shifting. Yeah, here it is. There it is. As part of that analysis, the Court of Appeals concluded that the major question doctrine did not apply and thus rejected the need for a clear statement of congressional intent to delegate such power to the EPA. Having found that the EPA misunderstood the scope of its authority under the Clean Air Act, the court vacated the agency's repeal of the Clean Power Plan and remanded the agency for further consideration. It also vacated and remanded the replacement of the rule, the ACE rule, for the same reason. So all this long-winded legal gobbledygook is essentially to say that, well, regulatory agencies such as the EPA cannot extend or cannot exceed their actions beyond what is explicitly dictated by Congress. Do I have that correct? Wait a minute. Such cases have arisen from all corners of the administrative state. In Brown versus Williamson, for instance, the FDA claimed that its authority over drugs and devices included the power to regulate and even ban tobacco products. We rejected that expansive construction of the statute, concluded that Congress could not have intended to delegate such a sweeping and consequential authority in such a cryptic fashion. Holy yikes. What? So, like, what exactly is the solution then? Does the Supreme Court then want there to be, like, a specific agency for every little thing that's specifically delegated to Congress? Because by this logic, there should be a tobacco oversight, specifically, that was done by Congress and has the authority specifically delegated by Congress to regulate things like this. Oh yeah, Ravana's awesome. There's no doctrine of standing anymore. It simply doesn't exist. They sued over the idea that they may be injured by some theoretical potential regulation, and the court held that that was valid. Oh man. Oh god. This is the definition of like being held up by literal this is literally thoughts and prayers. Holy yikes. We are playing with magic, folks. We are literally playing with magic. This is wild. By the way, the SCOTUS has held twice that the Clean Air Act gives the EPA authority to regulate greenhouse gases. Yeah, I mean, it would make sense, but like, in their reasoning, I mean, I think it's as clear as day in this statement, right? Yeah, Rayvon is great. Wow. That's well, that's not good. How do I put this in words? How do I put this in words? Well, I guess I'll be as blunt as possible. We're effed. Yeah. Well, Fu Manchu, for any bread techniques, you may want to speak with Mayhem Hippie, who can teach you how to make bread from scratch. You know. Well, how... Jesus Christ. I'm still trying to, like, make heads or tails out of this. I mean, there's ways of getting enough ingredients if you all, get together and make large amounts of bread. Um, I'm just at a loss of words. So essentially, the government is broken. That's huge. The government is broken. I mean, how else do we interpret this? The government is broken. Never mind the obvious ramifications it has for our ability to regulate greenhouse gases. Like that's a whole other catastrophe in and of itself. But like the ramifications of what this could mean, like what this means for other regulatory bodies. I mean, yeah, it's broken. I mean, they tell you right here. We think that, the FDA's ability to regulate is actually not even valid. In fact, Congress could not have intended to delegate such a sweeping and consequential authority in such a cryptic fashion. Yeah, I mean, that tells you the exact intention of the argument, right? Unless Congress specifically has that rule legislation, then essentially regulatory agencies don't really have much power or shouldn't have much power. Our decision in utility error addressed another question regarding the EPA's authority, namely whether EPA could construe the term air pollutant in a specific provision of the Clean Air Act to cover greenhouse gases. What? Despite its textual plausibility, we noted that the agency's interpretation could have given it permitting authority over millions of small sources such as hotels, office buildings that have never before been subject to such requirements. We decline to uphold the EPA's claim of unheralded regulatory power over a significant portion of the American economy. What? Yeah, the same, like, this is it, right? This is the goal, right? We found it that telling OSHA in half its century of existence have never relied on its authority to regulate occupational hazards to impose such a remarkable measure. Okay. The dismantling of the ability to have any type of regulations or anything of that sort looks to me like it's pretty much done. I mean, what else is there to say? And yet, in each case, given the various circumstances, common sense as to the manner in which Congress would have been likely to delegate such power agency at issue, Brown versus Williamson made it very unlikely that Congress had actually done so. Extraordinary grants of regulatory authority are rarely accomplished through modest words or vague terms or subtle devices. Nor does Congress typically use oblique or elliptical language to empower an agency to make a radical or fundamental change to a statutory scheme. Agencies have only those powers given to them by Congress, and enabling legislation is generally not an open book to which agency may add pages and change the plotline. Jesus Christ. So, essentially, Congress has to legislate these things. Yeah, good luck with that. The agency instead must point to clear congressional authorization for the power it claims. Holy yikes. Oh man, it isn't any clearer than this, right? It can't be any clearer than that. So we're then are they then arguing that we need to expand bureaucracy? Because like if the EPA doesn't have clear congressional authorization for the power it claims, or OSHA or whatever, the FDA, then do we need to create more bureaucracy to make sure that there are individual bureaucratic agencies that handle these specific things with clear congressional authorization? Like, what is exactly the point here? Like, does Congress need to sit here and write every single line down for them? The whole point of having a bureaucracy is so that Congress has the ability to legislate. They created these things for a purpose, right? The Environmental Protection Agency. I would argue that regulating greenhouse gases might fall under environmental protection. I get the paranoid feeling that shit can only go on for just a little while longer before actual large-scale violence happens. Man, I hope you're wrong. Well, Progressive B, if it comes down to that, I don't think it matters whether or not you're legally allowed to carry at that point. In a hypothetical situation that Fu Man has presented us, I'm pretty sure that the legality of whether or not you're allowed to carry is kind of doesn't matter at that point, right? just to piggyback off what you said. Jeez. Well, that's upsetting. That is upsetting. $1 late. Sorry, I messed up the thing. A day late and $1 short. I mean that quite literally. A day late and $1 short, my friend. A day late and $1 short. Lefties should probably arm themselves. It's your Second Amendment, right? Right? $1, a day late and $1 short, my friend. So I guess to just kind of get the TLDR, it's basically what Ravana was saying. It's basically what Fuman was saying. The Supreme Court dealt a major blow to the EPA's power to regulate carbon emissions and cause climate change. The decision by the conservative court majority sets the stage for further limitations on regulatory power of other agencies as well. By a vote to 6-3, the court said any time an agency does something big and new, in this case addressing climate change, which is catastrophic and not new, the regulation is presumptively invalid unless Congress has specifically authorized regulating in this sphere. Right, which is exactly what Fuman was saying. Well, that's not really... Come on, Automod, be nice. Nicer. At issue in the case, rules adopted by the Trump and Obama administration and aimed at addressing the country's single largest carbon emission problem from coal-fired plants. The Obama plan was broad, the Trump plan was narrow. The Obama plan didn't regulate only coal-fired plants. Instead, it set strict carbon limits for each state and encouraged the states to meet those limits by relying less on coal-fired plants and more on alternative energy sources. Wind, solar, hydro, and natural gas. The goal of the plan was to produce enough electricity to satisfy U.S. demand in ways that lowered greenhouse emissions. The concept worked so well that even after Obama's Clean Power Plan was temporarily blocked by the Supreme Court and then repealed by the Trump administration, most utilities continued to abandon coal because it was just too expensive compared to other energy-producing methods. In fact, Even without the regulation in place, reduction targets for carbon emissions were met 11 years ahead of schedule. Fearing the Obama approach might someday be revived, the coal industry, joined by West Virginia and 16 other states, went to court in support of this Trump plan and its more restrictive interpretation of the Clean Air Act. Imagine. It was leaked, nothing was done, now he wants to tease dropping the filibuster. Yeah, well, it's a day late and $1 short. He's just mad that everybody found out that he's allowing an anti-choice federal judge to serve in Kentucky. Yeah, folks. So yeah, this is what happens when conservatives win elections. When Republicans win elections, we all get doomed. That is not a hyperbolic statement. But on Thursday, the Supreme Court sided with the coal industry, ruling that the Clean Air Act does not authorize anything other than direct regulation of coal-fired plants. Fighting for the court majority, Justice Roberts said that under what the court has recently called major questions doctrine, neither the EPA nor any other agency may adopt rules that are transformational to the economy unless Congress has specifically authorized such a transformative rule to address a specific problem. Like climate change. In his opinion, Roberts wrote, in extraordinary cases, both separation of powers and practical understanding of legislative intent makes us reluctant to read into ambiguous statutory text the delegation claimed to be lurking there. Utility Air 573 U.S. 324 to convince us otherwise, something more than a merely plausible textual basis of agency action is necessary. This agency instead must point to clear congressional authorization for the power it claims. Justice Kagan wrote in her dissent, today the court strips EPA of the power Congress gave it to respond to the most pressing environmental challenges of our time. It deprives the EPA of the power needed and the power granted to curb emissions from greenhouse gases. She was joined by the court's two other liberals. The decision appears to enact major new limits on agency regulations across the economy, limits of a kind not imposed by the courts for 75 years or more. We're going backwards, folks. The decision, for instance, casts a cloud of doubt over a proposed Security Exchange Commission rule that would require companies offering securities to the public to disclose climate-related risks like severe weather events that have or likely will affect their business model. Also in jeopardy is a new interim rule adopted by the Federal Energy Regulation Commission aimed at treating greenhouse gas emissions and their contribution to climate change the same as all the other environmental impacts. I mean, the commission considers. Yeah. The decision was a particularly bad omen for environmentalists in a very real sense. It seems to reject any holistic regulatory attempt to deal with climate change. What's more, the court dealt with the case. The way the court dealt with the case is an indication of its new and very muscular approach to regulations in general. After all, when the case was initially before the court, for all practical purposes, there was no regulation in place. The Obama rule had been put on hold by the court and then repealed by the Trump administration. The Trump rule had simply been paused, and the Biden administration said it would not adopt either the Obama or Trump approach. So it would have been easy, indeed, even expected, that the Supreme Court would toss the whole case out and wait for a new rule to be adopted. As Case Western Reserve professor Jonathan Adler put it, the fact that the court took the case shows that these justices are in a hurry to rewrite the nation's regulatory laws in a way that not seen in 3/4 of a century. Harvard law professor Richard Lazarus had an even more ominous view. By insisting that Congress must specifically authorize significant rules at a time when the justices know the Congress is effectively dysfunctional, the court threatens to upend the national government's ability to safeguard public health and welfare. That's a good point. The court, he added, is taking dire steps at the moment when the U.S. and all nations are facing greatest environmental challenges, the greatest environmental challenge of all, climate change. Well, there it is, folks. I can't wait for anyone trying to actually implement Medicare for all with this SCOTUS. Yeah, no, that's not happening. Yeah. Yes, but that's a separate argument, ma'am hippie. Dems have done nothing to stop this either. Yeah, that's true. In fact, I would like to bring your attention to this comment here. Here we have McConnell bragging. That his actions led to the overturning of Roe v. Wade, and in the situation that we're in, because it's not just a Roe v. Wade, but all this cascading rulings. SCOTUS is Supreme Court of the United States. Senate Minority Leader said on Wednesday that his decision to block former President Obama's Supreme Court to succeed the late Justice Antonin Scalia led to Roe v. Wade getting overturned. It's the most single consequential decision I've made in my public career. I couldn't agree more. The senator also called the Supreme Court's opinion a step in the right direction, a huge step in the right direction. McConnell said that refusing to consider Merrick Garland's nomination that led to President Trump installing Justice Neil Gorsuch on the bench, the first of 3 appointees that gave the Supreme Court the 6-3 supermajority. All 3 justices appointed by Trump, Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett, joined the court's opinion written by Alito in overturning Roe. They're bragging about it. It was them. I'm waiting for Dems to either ignore SCOTUS ruling altogether or have enough resources to move out of the country. Things are going to get dicey. Yeah. Buckle up, folks. This is not the end. How is it even legal that one president can appoint a third of the court? I don't know. Like, how did we allow that to happen? I don't know. And Biden just made a deal with him. He thinks that he'll keep his end up. A lifetime federal judge appointment for anti-choice. Yeah, exactly. No, this is so, like, backwards. You cannot negotiate with these people, okay? They're not negotiating with you, okay? They proved that to you time and time again. Here he is bragging about it. He's literally bragging about it. Yes, I would say that perjury should be grounds for impeachment. All 3 of them. All 3 of them should be considered for impeachment and removed for lying under oath. We need to impeach judges who lied at their hearings and remove them from office. After that, set a hard 1-2 judgment appointment per POTUS term. Yeah. I mean, that would be a good solution. Correct. Oh my god, these conservatives are gonna get us all killed. Who can make judges face impeachment and get them fired? I think the Congress and the Senate, right? The Congress and the Senate have to have that hearing. All right, folks. It is getting to that time. I do have to get going, folks. If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to hit the follow button. Don't forget to subscribe on the YouTubes. I appreciate you guys there. And spread the word far and wide that this is the chillest place to be for news and politics, Monday through Thursday. Don't forget, this upcoming Tuesday, July 5th, we will be switching to 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Naughty Grandma, you have a good weekend. Donate and sub. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you to all the subscribes, the follows, the biddies. Mayhem with another 50 biddies. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. As always, folks, please stay safe. Please take care of each other. I love you all, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. See ya. Alright, give me one moment, folks. Well, happy early birthday. See ya.